A large bush man needs a large bush knife. If you're a large bush man, you need a bush knife. Oh, large bush man with your large bush knife. Cut down trees and make love to your wife. Feeding your cat and you practice cartwheels. Take good care of yourself by eating good meals. A large bush man needs a large bush knife. If you're a large bush man, you need a bush knife. A large bush man uses his knife all day. He enjoys a drink in a responsible way. Helps around the house, helps his children learn skills. The future is theirs, that's the way that he feels.
Hello, did you like that? Yeah, you need to set the tone with these things. One song and all the people who aren't as fond of my more dynamic knife reviews are all gone. Hey, it makes sense. So this knife review is about this blade here, the large bush knife from Halfbreed Blades. So Halfbreed Blades, their sister company Hardcore Hardware, I've taken notes for this review, sent me a few knives some years back, and they've always been very supportive to the channel. I don't generally take the free stuff anymore because it does make me feel a bit weird if I don't like it, but I'm generally pretty happy that the stuff they make I like, because it's kind of obvious on the box what it's going to do. So you're always pretty safe. And also, they're Australian, so I like to support my fellow Australians. They make their knives, I think the machining, like the shaping and main stuff is done in Taiwan, then it gets sent here, finishing, assembly and things like that are done in Australia. So an Australian-owned company that do some overseas work, and that's just the way it is. And these guys sell under the Halfbreed banner. There is also Hardcore Hardware still, and they just sell some different stuff. All kind of similar-ish aesthetics and all that sort of stuff, but that's the way the business side of things is, and I don't really know much more about it than that, apart from they've always been friendly to this guy, especially back when I had fewer subscribers and all that sort of stuff, so I certainly was happy to try some more of their stuff. So think of that how you will. All of my testing that I do, whenever I say something about a knife, what it can do, I usually show you the knife doing it. So I like to think that kind of proofs me a little bit from saying, you said that knife could chop, and I reckon you're fibbing because you just like the knife. And it's like, no, well, I'll show you the knife chopping, and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how I do it. Anyway, other administrative stuff, I do notice a lot of my viewers are not subscribed, so you should subscribe if you like my content, because there is a lot of it. There is 1,000 of it. So definitely hit subscribe. There'll be more of this. All my videos have me in them, and usually some off-kilter stuff. So if you like a bit of extra flavour in your knife videos, then I really recommend subscribing to Cedric. He's a really good dude. But anyway, on with the review. We're going to break this down. I like to just go through the various parts of the blade and things one by one, so focusing on blade, focusing on handle, focusing on sheath, all that sort of good stuff. But let's start off with a size comparison.
Large bush knife, it's more the girth and the length. It's not quite a chode, but it has the same strength. Let's look at more knives and compare them by price. Large Bushman suggests you get financial advice.
So, this blade, I'm going to talk about it next to the BK9 a little bit, because the BK9 weighs the same. So, starting with the design, this is like a compact survival knife, or a more compact survival knife. You use the same amount of weight for the same rough purpose, larger survival knife, but it just lays it out differently, you know? So with this knife here, you're getting something that is more carryable, so you can carry this quite happily, scout style, in the back of your pants. The BK9, unless you've got a really big back of your pants area and a custom sheath that will do that, then you're going to struggle. It's just going to be a downward style carry. So that's kind of the choice you're making, but you get some advantage from having a longer blade. You get some advantage from having a shorter blade. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. Why not get both? Hey, knife sickness, here we come. So that's what you're asking for. You're asking for, or you're not asking for, you're asking, do I want a thinner, longer blade or a shorter, chunkier blade? And that will depend on your uses, my friends. Here in Australia, well, I don't do a lot of battening wood, and battening wood is something that a longer blade definitely does help with, but I kind of only do it for you guys because you like to see it. So that's sort of where I would say that's definitely when you need the longer one, but otherwise, just keep an open mind, yeah? This goes to like the K-bar warthog school of like the big flat blade face. So the same amount of weight is technically hitting the thing you're knifing, it's just it's laid out a bit differently. And of course that brings pros and cons to the use of the blade, which is what this part of the review is about. The blade. So the blade on this guy is a D2 tall steel blade, or as they say, K110. That's a cool way of saying D2. It evokes those images of K390 and things like that, but it's D2. D2 is nothing to sneeze at. It is a perfectly acceptable steel for most applications. However, there has been some stigma about it in fixed blades and bigger chopping knives, mainly because of guys like me who do things like battening with their Boco Vox rolled. Now, I have tested this knife extensively, and I would report that the application of D2 in this instance is done very well. Let me explain. First off, with edge retention. I conducted an edge retention test on this knife. I brought it back from my outdoor adventures, and I kept the factory angle. So I just polished the factory angle, which I measured at about 24 degrees per side. With a mirror polished edge that I put on using the KME sharpening system, which that process I found very nice. It's an easy steel to sharpen, or easier steel than some of your others. Probably not as easy as 1095, but as the edge retention test showed, it's probably going to hold an edge for about twice as long as your more basic carbon steels. So the edge retention test on this guy cut through the rope 185 times. So I do a twisted sisal rope cut test. You can see on my channel there's hundreds of them, all different sorts of steels, all different sorts of angles, all different sorts of edges. 185 for a relatively thick, I usually use 17 degrees, this was 24 degrees. Relatively thick, edge angle was very good, so it's a good result on this D2 steel for sure. The Rockwell hardness on this one is from 58 to 60. So that begs the question, ooh, a hard long-lasting edge, surely that's brittle, Pete. Well, not in my testing, it's not, and I did a lot of stuff. So first of all, I was cutting dead red gum Australian branches, and red gum is that wood that people often remark in my videos, that wood seems ungodly hard, and it is. It's very hard stuff. It's stuff that will, if you try and batten through it, it will just snap your knife in half. Like, it's super solid, super dense, super heavy, makes amazing firewood because it burns for so long because it's so darn dense. So it did absolutely fine, chopping all that stuff up, chopping limbs off right at the knot, all that sort of thing, no chipping, which is cool. And then I did my coconut opening, which is something I've been doing lately to sort of test the edge stability. Observe, before the coconut was chopped, this is the microscope image of the edge, nice and smooth and clean and uninterrupted. And after the coconut chop,
once the jolly swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree, and he sang as he watched and waited till his billy was, "You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me." And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy was, "You'll..."
Only some slight variances, and those look quite noticeable because it's a microscopic image, but they were easily buffed out with the humble workshop field sharpening tool. So very cool, just a few of these guys, and it was back to how it was. So the steel, I can happily report, does impact tasks and does edge retention tasks really well. So that being said, there's some things this blade doesn't particularly excel at, and they're going to be things that are quite obvious. So it's got a hollow grind, which does assist in biting in. And in fact, when it comes to just your basic trying to cut something in half, this will certainly get you started very, very well. So a hollow grind is a really good way of putting a keenish edge on a big chunky 1/4 inch blade. And as I saw, it didn't hinder its toughness. And it's probably because I'm keeping the edge angle at about 25. So maybe just keep doing that if you get one of these. But it's going to start, so I cut the PVC piping with it, which is like this relatively hard stuff to cut. If your edge is even slightly dull or slightly even convex, you're just going to find your knife and the piping rubbing against each other like two frisky 15-year-olds who don't want to go that extra step. So it's got a nice bite to it because it cut through that stuff really, really well. Not as good, obviously, as like a proper pocket knife with a much thinner grind and edge angle and everything, but for a big chunky knife, it certainly cuts. And even through things like limes, shorter things that don't need as long a follow through, it still cuts really, really well. And of course, choking up and shaving wood on it is something you can absolutely do, not a problem. So for that big bush wood multi-tool aesthetic, it's doing really well. This starts to fall down when you start to use it for tasks that it's probably not made for. What a surprise. Cutting through cardboard. I mean, if you work in Coles in the back docks and you got this as your cardboard cutting knife, you definitely have my respect, because that's metal and you're making a statement, my friend, and I respect that. But your trailing cuts through the cardboard aren't going to do so great because the cardboard is going to bind up on this big flat face here, and the full of air isn't going to help either. So the cardboard cuts are very, very, definitely in the lower tier. If you're getting a cardboard cutting knife, wouldn't really suggest it. Just sticks and grips a little bit too much. And getting to things like potatoes and stuff like that as well, you'll be fracturing your potatoes rather than slicing them. So just the limits of the blade are definitely reached when you try and use it outside the spec. And remembering the spec is big wood chopping, smashing, one tool kind of stuff. So that's where the blade will fall down, but I don't think that's going to be any news to anyone who's seen a knife before. So generally, aesthetic-wise, I like how the blade looks. This is not for everyone, this look. Some people just like their knife to look more, I like my heavy knife to be long, and that's something I can't really convince you of otherwise. But I like how it looks. It's kind of stylized in the way that all their stuff is. They kind of go with that sort of, their stock images are like muscly dudes, like charging through doors and that sort of stuff. So if you're into that, then it kind of runs along with that. But the appearance here does go hand in hand with some pretty decent blade and handle performance. And that's right, we're going to move on to the handle performance now. So this handle is excellent for chopping. So I'm talking about chopping in the handle part rather than the blade part, because it is really what makes a knife capable of chopping once you've got that weight applied. So the weight here, as I said, of these two things is the same. So 500 gram knives, right? This guy, you can get about the same leverage as you can get with this guy, maybe like a couple of inches less, but the handle design and the jimping here really does help you retain control over the knife when you are using it in a bit of a wrist flicky sort of way. So I did a cut test against some pine, which is here. So I cut this piece of pine with both knives 20 times. I did a 20 cut test. As you see here, the BK9 did that well. And I'm trying, I don't care which knife does better at chopping. Like, it doesn't, there's skin off my nose if the BK9 chops better than this guy. But I'd argue that this guy chopped about as well. 20 cuts, you know what? I think it was a combination of the weights being the same. I think the hollow grind makes it dig in and bite really, really well. And also, yeah, the leverage I can get from the handle made it a really good chopper, as good as this for chopping. And really, knives aren't going to be your ideal choppers. You're going to get an axe or you're going to get a machete, or you're just going to use a saw, like you're using the right tool for the job, all that good stuff. But in a pinch, this will chop about as well as the BK9 from my testing. And that's from not only from that, but just doing a bit of light limbing and that sort of stuff. Not to the point where I'm like, geez, I wish the BK9 was here instead, because this is just appalling. It's about the same. And fatigue-wise, about the same as well. Must say though, as a side note, the BK9 comes alive with these micarta scales. Now I'm a proper knife YouTuber. What should I call it? Jeffrey X, who knows?
I'm Jeffrey. I've just moved in.
Yes, I'm Jeffrey.
My wife has got varicose veins.
I'm having a heart attack.
So, really, really good ergonomics allow you to do chopping, and then they also allow you to just comfortably hold it in a hammer grip. Like my rope cut test was absolutely fine. Good ergos for that, no problems. And then you can choke up, of course, for detail work, and you can do some carving, slicing, that sort of stuff. Just fine. So overall, excellent handle ergonomics, everything's chamfered. The jimping is kind of like big and bulky, but you don't need fine jimping on big knives like this, because fine jimping will tear your hand up in things like this. All this jimping is doing is providing a bit of extra friction and surface area contact between this part and this part, right? So really, really good for the exact purpose that I think they're making it for. So the handle ergonomics are great. The G10 handles, I like G10, it feels warm. They're sort of slab style, you see? But they're radiused a little bit to keep them nice and comfy. There's a bow drill divot hole, which, well, should I bring up the bow drill fire that I tried to make? Let's just play the song.
Bushman needs a bushcraft class. Spin wild between drinks, so his bushcraft sucks ass. Bow drill fires are full A-grade bushman. A nice bushman is a 3 out of 10. So he drives home all mad in a bad mood for the day. Makes a good meal, thinks positive thoughts. He doesn't like to be this out of sorts.
So yeah, good handle, happy with the handle. Let's talk about the sheath. So when you're talking about the sheath, it's where I like to start talking about the price. So these are $385 Australian. When you convert that to the current US dollars, it's about 230 bucks. So 230 bucks, yeah, this is 110 for sure. Bummer, right? But it's 110 with the, the less well-rated black plastic scales and with a standard nylon sheath. So you're looking extra 40 US dollars for good micarta scales. You're probably looking extra 50 for a nice Kydex sheath. So you've already brought your knife up to about 190 US dollars, right? 1095 steel, probably worth a little bit less than D2. All I'm saying is, when you factor in the sheath, which look at that sheath, that's a modern sheath. That's a tactical gentleman's sheath for sure, isn't it? It's proper Kydex, and this comes with a blade tech lock, which I swapped to, but it also comes with some dots webbing for like attachment to a LBK vest or something like that, or to a backpack with a molly panel or something like that. So I swapped to this scout style, small on my back, loving it. It's a high quality Kydex sheath, and it definitely is. To get someone to make this for you would be 50 US dollar dues at the minimum. It's got its own little fire steel here, which sits in its little fire steel holder. Overall, the sheath is super high quality. The retention is really good. It's really well done. So, sheath, knife, match made in heaven, clicks in, no rattle, just really well done. So the sheath is about excellent. It's about as good as a sheath you can get for a knife like this, unless you really love leather, but then you're going to hit up Paul at Headshot Leatherworks and pay like $300, you know? So this Kydex is great. So, very cool. Sheath, good to go. Talking about it as a fire knife, people often like to know how a knife does at Firecraft. So, Firecraft wise, it comes with this bow drill divot here, which you need some skills to use, which I obviously lack. It also comes with a ferro rod. Now, the spine, they've chosen to do a chamfered rounded off, well not rounded off, but a non-sharp spine. So none of these points here are sharp enough to strike the ferro rod, except for obviously the edge, but that is committing internet bushcraft suicide doing that. You get all sorts of yelling happening to you. So what they've done is they put a little notch at the end, which fits this fire steel. So this is a thinner fire steel. It's cool that there's an option. So as a fire knife, it's a yes, it does have a fire making option to it. It isn't just the kind of like the mass crowd pleasing option that you often do get. They've made a choice, and you know, fair enough. So this notch here and this fire steel here, they make a spark. Like, it's a spark that you're gonna want some probably man-made tinder carried with you. So I would say pack a cotton ball if you're going to plan on using this as your single fire source. Cotton ball catches any flame, no worries at all. So that's what you're going to be looking at. What I would have liked to have seen is kind of what the line steel did in the B40, which was shear off an entire flat back portion here, nice, completely rough edge. And that knife, that throws some damn sparks. Check this guy out. That just globs them out everywhere. It would shorten the life of your fire steel like crazy, but in case you lose this, I mean, you can always replace it with another thin one, but most fire steels are these jobs that we get. You know, these, you know, buy them off eBay for $5 or something for a whole bunch of them. And this just doesn't even fit anywhere. Kind of fits, but not enough to get a proper shave. It's kind of just catching the edge there rather than the whole thing's not fitting into the scoop. So I would have preferred just a shorn off section there for striking any fire steel rather than the little notch for striking just this one. Oops. So yeah, as a fire knife, it's good that it has an option, but it's just not a not like a complete home run. Like it's not like a Mora Garbo that you can fling every fire steels, all the sparks, all the time, forever. That's what I'm saying on that one. But nice to have the option, nice to have the fire steel included in the sheath. Just not, and some knives don't. Like this knife doesn't really have much fire steel capacity at all either. It's got a, Teflon or whatever this coating is, and yeah, there's no at all. So it's not every knife. So it's cool when they've even gone that little bit of a way, but we'd like to have seen a little bit of a mod back here rather than even this hammer part here. You could have just made this shorn off, flat, steely edges, and whatever. But that's it for the fire steel. So just a bit of a, in the average territory for its use as a firecraft knife. Unless you're an amazing bow driller, which surely you are because you're watching bushcraft videos on the internet. It's just me that's not. That's the case, isn't it?
That wound will never fully heal. He will carry it the rest of his life.
Consulting my notes, make sure I've covered everything. The smaller factors, the fit, finish, presentation. The knife comes really well presented. It's basically flawless out of the box. Like, it comes with a really sharp, very polished edge, really well done sharpening job. All the finishing, assembly and stuff is excellent. The shaping, the CNC, all that sort of stuff, absolutely, home run. Like, it feels like a really premium product. Straight away, you get it in these amazing carry boxes, not carry boxes, presentation boxes, I guess you'd call them, in foam with stickers and all this kind of cool stuff in there. So fit and finish, presentation wise, definitely feels like a premium product. So really, really happy with that as well. So look, overall, do I recommend this knife? Well, you can see this knife if you like this style of blade. Like, if you are fine with this over this, and I would really urge you to give it a try. Give something like this a try. You'd be surprised at how the application of the weight works well on this. It's like almost a little mini hand hatchet like in its execution. Yeah, the main weakness is going to be spanning big logs for battening. If that's something you do, then yeah, you might want to nut and fancy it and go 9 inches or more, for your survival knife or machete or whatever you're doing. But if you're in an environment where I am, where splitting wood isn't really something I'm doing a lot, but I do like having something that's pretty rugged, pretty overbuilt, pretty strong and tough and cool, then I recommend it. It's good. It's something that if I'd have bought this knife with my own money, I'd be totally happy with it, and I'd be keeping it in my collection for sure. It's a wonderful, big, heavy, fun blade. And as I always say, when I come back full circle with these survival knives, so much of them is about fun. Like, it's about having a knife that makes you feel good when you pick it up and hold it and swing it around and do stuff with it. And of course, when the tree falls down in the yard and you need to find some real world use for it, it's going to do all that really, really well too. So it's going to actually perform, but it's also super fun Really nicely made, really well presented, and positive review. That's what you get, it's a positive review. So yeah, for sure, I got this knife from the company. Just have to make our peace with that, but I'm trying really hard to look at it objectively. All the things that it's done well, I feel like I've expressed, and all the things that it hasn't done so well, I feel like I've expressed too. So that's what you get. That's your review. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye now.
So you're also going to need a good tinder bundle or bird nest, and like I said, cedar has amazing bark for that. And you just got to process it up, strip it off,